All right. Welcome to Gru, and thank you so much for taking time and coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely, bud. So the first I want to start asking you, typical question first is like, what drew you to want to make films? Like, when did your passion start to make film?
I grew up sort of like working on and helping or just shadowing like the different filmmakers. I grew up around my dad was a movie producer and my mom was an actor, so I got to kind of work on sets, like summer jobs.
Nice.
Um, and just kind of pick up on the sort of workflow of how to work on, how features get made and from different perspectives. So that was an early like kind of bit by the bug of like this is interesting to me. And then in elementary school, my brother and I and all of our friends used to like shoot movies in the backyard. Like, we'd write stories or do remakes of like famous movies. And, when you're a kid, you're just obviously just you're kind of messing around, but I think in your mind, this is like the real deal. Like you're doing something pretty professional because we would cut these movies and cast them and get wardrobe and write scripts. And so there was an early like being a young person wanting to make movies. And then I went to film school and studied film editing was my main kind of focus there.
Nice.
And I made like a music video on 8mm film, which was kind of like a great way to play around with like an old 8mm camera. And then I thought I was just going to make movies. And then I kind of got randomly a job to act in a movie. It just kind of popped up. Like I auditioned. My cousin Sophia Coppola put me in her short film called Lick the Star.
Oh, okay.
She asked me if I wanted to like act in it. It was like she was making the transition of like wanting to direct. So I was like in her movie that was she shot in like a high school. I played like a high school kid. And then when she wrote The Virgin Suicides, she had a character in mind for me. So I read for that movie and she cast me in it. And yeah, and then that was sort of like an early like, wow, I'm acting. Like this is bizarre. Like I never thought I'd be an actor. And hold on one second.
Yeah, yeah.
So I sort of kind of got pulled into this like profession that I wasn't really ready for, to be honest. But I loved it because I loved being on movie sets. I loved crews. I loved the energy of it. Sorry, one second. Yes.
That's no problem.
So yeah, basically, I just kind of found myself like in most of my life, I just kind of find myself doing things that I love, but I just kind of follow sort of where the wind kind of takes me. That's been my just kind of way of doing things. I just kind of follow my whatever interests me.
Okay.
And music, randomly music became kind of a totally unexpected profession. I started a band in high school and then I fell in love with songwriting and I was like, wow, I could make a run at this. So I kept at it. I started a band called Rooney. I found myself as the front man of a rock and roll band, and we got a record deal with Interscope Geffen, and I was off to the races as like a band guy. Um, is it monthly? Oh yeah, sorry. So that's where I found myself, and then I, took a break from music eventually, and you know, I I did Rooney for like over 12 years of touring, and it was like a real job, a real profession. And then I, randomly was like, I want to, like take the advice I give my independent filmmaker friends, which is, yo, hey, if you have an idea for something, try to come up with a story or a script that
Yeah.
is not going to be too expensive, that's makeable, like something you can go shoot with your friends like tomorrow. It's sort of a la the way I was making movies with my friends as kids. And that's what I did. So my first film was called Dreamland. I worked on the script with a friend of mine, and we wrote a movie that was very like makeable, you know, with the relationships we had. So that was my first stab at filmmaking independently. I produced the
No.
film and directed it, and I was lucky enough to get into Tribeca. And that's really, if you want to talk about my filmmaking, thank you. My filmmaking sort of career beginning was with Dreamland at Tribeca, and after that, I've just been, very dedicated to like the film industry. I've been completely gobbled up by everything related to film as I was music for so long.
Oh wow, okay.
It's a lot
And
of you asked me that was not a little question and you got a big answer.
hey, it's all good, bud. And the current film that you're part of that you direct is called the good half, and you
Hmm.
have like a huge cast for this film, like an all-star cast, a who's
Oh
who
yeah.
cast. And out of everyone, how did you choose Nick as the
Yeah.
the lead of the film? And I think this is his first lead.
Yeah, it's Nick's been acting for many years. I think he obviously when you kind of blow up in one profession, you that's how people think of you. So when you do the other thing, everyone's like, it takes a minute. Thank you. It takes time for people to kind of come around and go, "Oh wow, you're an actor." But so I'm surprised he hasn't ever led a movie because
Yeah.
he's so damn talented and he's
Oh
so
yeah.
good at it and so natural. But I met Nick during the music part of my life, which was again going back to what I said earlier, like where the wind blows you. Like I was fortunate enough to do music for so long because I built so many great relationships that have given me such a foundation for my filmmaking life
Mhm.
through music. So I met Nick while I was like a band guy. We met on tour.
Oh.
We wrote some music together and we had like a nice life together as musician friends. And it was sort of before he became like a famous musician. Like I think he and I connected sort of on when his band was on the rise. So I think I kind
Yeah.
of knew him. I think he felt comfortable with me because I knew him before he was like a superstar. Does that make sense? Like, so meaning like I can see him for the human that he is, that I think sometimes the industry can't see him as anymore. But what that allowed was for me to feel comfortable enough to work with him as an actor to get what I needed as a director from him, to push him in a ways that you need to push and trust your actors and vice versa. He could trust me and know that I'm going to have his back, as a director. So out of all we read a lot of actors, we took time casting the movie. COVID shut our movie down
Yeah.
in prep. We couldn't really get the movie off the ground for a while. And after trial and error with certain actors, I suddenly the idea of Nick came out of nowhere. I was like, wait, why didn't we ever talk about this? This is like he could be the guy. Like this could be our Renn, is the name of the character.
Yeah.
So like kind of spontaneously I called Nick's manager, who's an old friend of mine from back in the music days,
Oh
and
wow.
I gave him the script and I was like, hey, like we're making this movie. It's off to the races. We've got a lot of momentum. I think Nick should consider this. Like he should read this. And
Mhm.
John read it that night and he goes, this script is fucking great. And he goes, I'm gonna give it to Nick like tonight. Next day I get a call. Nick loves the movie. Right. So this is we made like you could step outside and go, okay, you're like, is this like a Hollywood movie? Hollywood, this, that, and the other. Like we all have this kind of like way of branding things in this world.
Mhm.
We label stuff in the world to
Yeah.
understand them. But this movie was kind of made in its call it like an un-Hollywood way because it was really just through friendships and knowing people for, over a decade, like
Oh
where you
wow.
just send them something and it's nice. Like I think some of the best things happen outside of the system in a way. Like we
Definitely.
didn't go through agents and all the BS to try to get somebody. We went
Hmm.
directly to the source and and I think again, like I feel very fortunate having done music that I got to actually meet Nick before he was really like focused on acting. And I think this was his transition to call it like a leading man role. And he takes it to another level. He took it beyond my wildest kind of fantasies as a director with what we could pull out of this character. And
Yeah.
I watch this movie again and again, and I lose myself in his performance because I don't feel like I'm looking at Nick.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I feel like I'm watching this great, performance. So
Yeah.
stay with me 1 second, sir.
Oh yeah,
Somebody's
sure.
trying to find me.
Okay, no problem.
That's sort of how we got to Nick. But the cast everywhere we look is like lights out, you know? And I think it's just because everybody really loved the material and they liked like me coming in to direct it and the relationship of meeting me and getting to talk about the film. For any actor, that's kind of what it takes to say yes. I think it's got to be like the material is appealing, the character is appealing, and they feel the director can like execute the project.
Oh yeah.
Because you know, look, when you make an indie movie, you're not, no one's getting like paid something that they can like retire off of.
True.
So you just, this is more, you do it for the love and the creative side of it, all of us.
Oh yeah.
So
And you know, you mentioned how he plays Ren, and Ren definitely struggles with losing his mother, and like Ren is full of grief and anger, and Nick played that like so good. Like he definitely, like, how did you work with Nick on getting those emotions out of anger and grief?
well, sorry, I'm getting in this car. Bear with me. The call landed on this like transitional moment, but
Good.
how did I get it out of him? I think that like that's just the job of like directing the movie would be finding ways to get the most out of the actors that's, you know, fits the material, is complementary to the material. But you know, Nick and I, we prepped as much as we could in LA. You don't really have a lot of time to prep on an independent feature.
Yeah.
So we did as much as we could together. Um, I shared stories of my experiences with grief and loss, and he hadn't lost, you know, a parent, but he had, his grandfather was close to him. His father passed away of cancer. Yeah, he's had personal experiences, sort of like, you know, dealing with grief, and I think he wanted to try to call on those emotions to try to access what he felt was close to what the character kind of was giving off in this film, as it's a, sort of a fresh wound for the character.
Hmm.
But I feel for me that when I lost a parent, it was a very like internal experience. Like it's hard to show an audience something that's truly like an internal transformation
Yeah.
that's represented externally, which is really the job of Nick, you know, and how we tell the story to create a mood and a feeling and music and everything that sets the tone that makes you feel I understand what he's going through. But I think for me, you put an actor in a role that starts to set the table for what ultimately is what you need from the performance energetically, the feeling they give you. Certain people give you a feeling. There might be people in your life around you that when you're with them, they give you a certain feeling of either happiness, excitement. They always
Definitely.
look like they're upset, like who knows, like whatever they are. People just have a certain kind of feeling to them. So when I'm casting something, I try to cast somebody that I feel is close to what we sort of need to begin to achieve the feeling of the film. That's casting for me, is like it's picking your ingredients that you're going to cook with, you know?
Yeah.
So Nick is a very internal, mysterious guy. He's very complicated. He's hard to understand. So for me, it was, you know, I felt like he already had the beginnings of what the character called for in terms of the mystery. And then it was really about how do we, is, you know, how do we really show the audience that there's a journey here through grief in such a short amount of time? It's not natural to go through grief so quickly. I think when we leave you at the end of the movie, he's not a new man, but he's beginning to show signs of starting to wake up to sort of what this new life is. And I think that's a very honest thing. So,
Oh wow. Okay. And Brett Brett wrote wrote the film, and what what was it? Well, wrote the script. What was it about the script that y- that you loved? Like you said, all right, I definitely want to do this.
um, you know, I, it's so funny. Like that is definitely, that's always like, that's an important question, obviously, because it's like, why are we even, why did we make this movie? You know, all of us. that's always the go-to question that, I always have a hard time answering because it sounds so silly to say I read this script and I just loved it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's such an easy answer. Like I read the material, really funny, really heartwarming, really good characters movie. Like it was just a nice story, like on the page, and I liked it, and I could see it how I would do it as a director. I also saw it as challenging. Like it's hard to make an indie movie with not a lot of time, with a lot of characters and a lot of locations, right? The hardest thing is when you have a lot of locations and a lot of characters when you make an indie movie. And then also when you have an ensemble, you have to kind of figure out how to kind of give everyone what they need or give all these characters a moment. So storytelling wise, there was a lot of hurdles to work with, which was when you have a good script, the pressure is on you as a director to have to do it right, so that's a pressure situation.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I saw this as like a way for me as a filmmaker to take a step forward, with material that was more emotionally charged with loss, similar, something close to what I experienced with the loss of a parent. So I felt like I could kind of live in the skin of this character, and that's where I like to be as a filmmaker. You want to kind of fall in love and live in these characters. So I felt I could identify with this lead character and put my own emotional stamp on it. That was one of the biggest draws, but just it just felt like an interesting next move as a director. I've never done a movie with these emotional hooks to it. I've done
Oh,
comedies, I've done dramedies that aren't as deep as this one from like a real experience, personal
yeah.
experience perspective. So I thought that was really juicy and exciting and something that would be different. And it took time though. It took time to get it made. It's always a challenge to make a movie, but I'm proud of it. I think I really love the cast. I love the world we built. I believe in the world we built.
Mhm.
And I think this movie's also given people something to identify with who have
Oh
lost
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
someone in their own life, you know?
Yeah, because you
Something kind of beautiful about the idea of connecting to a story about grieving when we've all had some form of it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because you look at the film on what Ren is going through, and you look at your own life then on how you grieved over either a loss of a parent, your grandfather, your grandmother, aunt, and uncle, and it definitely brings you back to those emotions.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. We've
Oh yeah.
gotten, it's something like the beauty of a movie and the beauty of a song is they just live out there. As
Mhm.
long as, I mean, digital might like just disappear one day, maybe the whole world's hard drives will be and the clouds will be just like erased. But like, you know, we hopefully these movies and films will just live on and on and on. People discover them at new times in their life.
Yeah.
So I think the I've seen the effect the movie has on people that have gone through loss. And even if you haven't, it makes you even appreciate the things you have right now. But
Definitely.
a lot of people stood up in the theater and told stories. We did a Q&A in LA, and it would like everyone went around the room like a therapy session and just like
Oh my
shared
God.
stories of loss. And it was like this incredibly beautiful moment where you go, wow, like this is why when you make a movie that people can relate to with a message that is important or positive, I think there's something really incredible about that. I didn't want to look. It was like a reminder. It was a nice reminder of that because I think a lot of movies, the movie industry has gotten a bit competitive, so everyone's gotten a little bit cheap with cheap entertainment, like whatever just sells tickets. But
Yeah.
that's not always the most enriched. Like it's not a very fulfilling thing for your soul in the long run. So, but it's just nice we made a movie that I think offers something else than just like an explosion.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And what about the score of the film? Because I love like listening to scores for the film. Who did you wind up going with for the score?
I worked on the music
Oh, okay. Yeah.
myself with a friend of mine named Ben Messelbeck, who plays bass in my band.
Yeah.
and then another musician named Tyler Blake, who has a band called Classics. They're like an electronic band. So it was
Nice.
sort of like a bit of a collaboration, different people writing different pieces of music. But I always like Frankenstein my scores for my movies, just because I know what I want musically, because I can make music. So I kind of just like pinpoint what I want and just figure out how I'm gonna get there. But
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense because you know how to do both. You know how to make films and make songs.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Uh, Is there like a certain scene that you like shooting the most? Like, is there like a scene that that you like most?
Yeah, in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the whole shooting in the funeral home was wild. You know, it was a real funeral home, so it was an
Oh,
active
okay.
funeral home. So it was a bizarre environment to be in with our crew shooting. You know, it's like there's a sensitivity. You know, you want to be sensitive to everybody there.
Mhm.
But being in a room where they sold coffins was like really strange.
Oh, wow.
But I like that sequence just because I like the tone. I like when comedy and I like sort of cringy comedy moments, like uncomfortable comedy. So dealing like in that environment and the subject matter with some levity is a bit uncomfortable for people sometimes. So I kind of like that. But I like simple coverage at times when it works. I like the three shot of the actor standing there with the salesman,
Yeah.
just looking at the coffins, and then the reverse of the coffins just sitting there. It's like just those kinds of, I like composing shots that are kind of like that. So
Okay.
I like that. I love the Father Dan kind of sequence in the hoarder's house. Things happen in that sequence that I think are different from the movie we've seen thus far. It introduces a different kind of energy and storytelling just visually. So anyway, I love that sequence too.
Nice. Yeah. The Ren and Zoe like when they're on the plane talking interacting with one another. That was really cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
definitely.
that.
And and how did it feel to actually premiere the film at Tribeca?
It felt incredible. I mean, like you festivals are really competitive to get
Oh my
into. Um, it's like hard. It's pretty wild how many movies get made every year and how few of them actually gets picked up at a festival. So especially like these prestigious festivals, you know. Um, so it was very meaningful to be celebrated there and embraced by that festival because I've had a film at Tribeca before and so yeah, it's like it was felt like a bit of a homecoming to be back in an environment that had welcomed me there on Dreamland, my first look feature. I've been rejected from Tribeca before too, so it hurts when they don't take your movie. So like it was nice to make a movie that they wanted, you know? So that made me happy.
nice, sweet man. Well, the last thing that I'm gonna ask you is where can fans follow you and follow the film at?
Yeah, you know, social media, blah blah blah. Everyone knows how to find people kind of. So you just look up Robert Schwartzman and on Instagram, and that's typically where I'm at the most active with updates. The Good Half Movie or the goodhalfmovie.com was just is a website, just is almost like an information website, just kind of tells you where the movie's playing in theaters, when it'll be on VOD, all that kind of stuff. So um yeah, I mean it's exciting. The movie's, you know, out there now, so it hasn't hit VOD yet, not till next month. So but it's very exciting.
Yeah, definitely, bud. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming on the
you.
show and doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks. Sorry for all the noise, but I appreciate your time.
Well, good, bud. Thank you, man.
Yep.
Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Rocco.